Eyjafjallajökull eruption. On April 14, 2010, Iceland's Eyjafjallajökull volcano erupted after nearly 200 years of dormancy. The eruption occurred beneath a glacier, causing melting ice to rapidly mix with magma and generate explosive steam-driven bursts. Ash plumes rose over 30,000 feet into the atmosphere, dispersing fine volcanic glass particles across Europe. Although moderate in size compared to other eruptions, the fine ash posed a severe hazard to jet engines. As a result, European airspace was closed for 6 days, grounding over 100,000 flights and stranding millions of passengers. The eruption became a defining example of how interconnected modern systems are to natural events. The global economic losses were estimated at $5 to $6 billion, mostly from the airline industry and trade disruptions. Despite minimal casualties, Eyjafjallajökull became one of the most globally disruptive volcanic events in modern times, a symbol of nature's ability to halt global commerce overnight. Mount Ontake eruption. On September 27, 2014, Mount Ontake erupted suddenly without warning, spewing hot ash, gas, and rock while more than 300 hikers were on its slopes. The phreatic explosion, caused by superheated steam from underground water, occurred with little seismic activity beforehand, making it impossible to predict. Within minutes, a gray cloud blanketed the mountain, and pyroclastic material rained down on unsuspecting hikers. 63 people were killed, making it Japan's deadliest eruption in nearly 90 years. Rescue operations were hampered by toxic gases and unstable terrain for weeks. Economic losses were estimated at $100 million, largely from tourism decline and recovery efforts. The eruption prompted Japan to revise its volcano monitoring systems and reinforce the dangers of phreatic activity, even in seemingly quiet volcanoes. Mount Agung eruption. Mount Agung, Bali's tallest and most sacred volcano, erupted on March 17, 1963, following months of tremors and steam emissions. The eruption sent columns of ash 10 kilometers high, while pyroclastic flows and lava streams tore through villages surrounding the mountain. More than 1,100 people were killed, and over 80,000 were displaced. The eruption also caused extensive agricultural damage, destroying crops and contaminating water supplies. Ash clouds reached Singapore and significantly darkened skies across Southeast Asia. The estimated economic cost exceeded $500 million, about $5 billion today, devastating Bali's agrarian economy. It also remains a culturally significant event, seen by locals as a divine warning, shaping spiritual and disaster awareness practices across the island. Mount Pele precursor eruptions. Before its catastrophic eruption in May 1902, Mount Pele gave several warning signs, including minor explosions, sulfur gas emissions, and ashfall beginning in late April. However, political leaders downplayed the risk to prevent panic during an election, keeping thousands in St. Pierre. These smaller eruptions destroyed nearby plantations and frightened animals, yet most residents remained. Days later, on May 8, the volcano exploded in one of history's deadliest pyroclastic flows. Only 2 people in the entire city survived. The precursor phase's ignored warnings contributed to the deaths of 30,000 people and losses estimated at $1 billion, which is the modern equivalent. The tragedy transformed volcanic risk communication, highlighting the deadly cost of political inaction in the face of science. Mount Unzen eruption. In 1792, Mount Unzen unleashed one of Japan's deadliest volcanic disasters. The eruption caused part of the volcano's Mayoyama dome to collapse, triggering a massive landslide into Ariake Bay. The resulting tsunami generated waves over 60 feet high that destroyed nearby towns. More than 15,000 people were killed, most from the tsunami rather than the eruption itself. The disaster completely reshaped the region's coastline and remains Japan's worst volcanic tragedy. While no monetary records exist, modern estimates place the cost of destruction at over $10 billion. Mount Unzen's 1792 event remains a case study in how volcanic activity can chain react into secondary disasters like landslides and tsunamis. Nevado del Ruiz eruption. On November 13, 1985, Nevado del Ruiz erupted after months of minor tremors and ash emissions. The eruption melted the volcano's ice cap, unleashing massive lahars, mud flows of volcanic debris that rushed down the mountain's valleys. Within hours, the town of Armero, located 74 kilometers away, was buried under 13 feet of mud. Over 23,000 people died, and rescue operations struggled against deep mud and isolation. The haunting image of trapped victim, Omaira Sanchez, became a global symbol of the tragedy. Economic losses exceeded $1 billion, devastating Colombia's agriculture and economy. The disaster led to the establishment of improved volcanic hazard monitoring worldwide, including Colombia's own Volcanology Institute. Mount Pinatubo Eruption. On June 15, 1991, Mount Pinatubo erupted violently after 600 years of dormancy. Triggered by the subduction of the Eurasian plate beneath the Philippine Sea plate, the eruption ejected over 5 cubic kilometers of volcanic material into the atmosphere. The eruption forced the evacuation of more than 20,000 people and collapsed U.S. military bases at Clark and Subic Bay. Ash mixed with Typhoon Eunice rains, causing massive roof collapses and lahars that continued for years. The global temperature dropped by 0.5 degrees Celsius due to sulfur aerosols into the stratosphere. The total economic cost reached $10 billion, including damage to agriculture, housing, and military infrastructure. Despite the destruction, the evacuation effort saved tens of thousands of lives and became a model for disaster preparedness. Mount St. Helens Eruption. On May 18, 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted following weeks of earthquakes and steam explosions. A magnitude 5.1 earthquake triggered the north face of the mountain to collapse, the largest landslide in recorded history. The lateral blast flattened 230 square miles of forest in minutes. 57 people were killed, and billions of tons of ash spread across 11 U.S. states. The eruption's force was equivalent to 500 atomic bombs. The event became a defining moment for volcanology, reshaping how scientists monitor volcanic deformation and eruption precursors. Economic losses were estimated at $1.1 billion, which is around $4 billion today. The eruption left an indelible mark on the American landscape, transforming Mount St. Helens into both a natural laboratory and a living memorial to nature's power. Mount Tambora Eruption. In April 1815, Mount Tambora produced the most powerful volcanic eruption in recorded history. The explosion obliterated the mountain's top, creating a 6-kilometer wide caldera and sending ash 40 kilometers into the atmosphere. 71,000 people were killed, mostly from starvation and disease following the eruption. The immense ash cloud caused global cooling, leading to 1816's Year Without a Summer. Crops failed across Europe and North America, resulting in food shortages and famine. The economic losses are estimated at over $300 billion, given the global agricultural collapse. Tambora's eruption revealed the planet-wide effects of volcanic aerosols, pioneering the study of climate-volcano interactions. Mount Pele Eruption. On May 8, 1902, Mount Pele erupted catastrophically, unleashing a pyroclastic flow that incinerated the city of St. Pierre within minutes. The eruption followed weeks of ash emissions and minor explosions, which authorities fatally underestimated. Over 30,000 people died, most instantly as the superheated gas reached temperatures above 1,000 degrees Celsius. Only 2 people survived, one of whom was a prisoner shielded by his stone cell. The event remains the deadliest volcanic eruption of the 20th century. Economic damage was estimated at $1 billion. Mount Pele became a cornerstone in the field of volcanology, introducing the term nube ardente and transforming how scientists classify pyroclastic phenomena. Krakatoa Eruption. On August 26 to 27, 1883, Krakatoa exploded with a force equivalent to 200 megatons of TNT. The eruption destroyed 2/3 of the island and was heard 3,000 miles away. It generated tsunamis over 40 meters high that obliterated coastal villages across Java and Sumatra. More than 36,000 people were killed, and the atmosphere filled with ash that dimmed sunlight worldwide. The eruption caused spectacular sunsets and dropped global temperatures by 1.2 degrees Celsius for over a year. Economic losses were estimated at $1.5 billion. Krakatoa's eruption also advanced global communication and atmospheric science, as it was the first eruption observed via telegraph and barometric readings across continents. Mount Vesuvius Eruption. In August 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted violently, sending a 20-mile-high column of pumice and ash into the sky. Pyroclastic surges swept down the slopes, burying the Roman cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum under meters of ash and volcanic debris. Thousands were killed, their final moments preserved in haunting plaster casts. The eruption was so intense that it altered the landscape of the Bay of Naples. For centuries, Pompeii lay forgotten until rediscovery in the 18th century revealed a time capsule of Roman daily life. Modern estimates suggest the economic equivalent of over $20 billion in loss, considering the scale of urban destruction and cultural heritage erased. Mount Vesuvius remains one of the world's most closely monitored volcanoes, a reminder that history's most famous eruption still threatens millions living nearby today.